Hey, sports card fans, it's John Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. There are so many ways to enjoy and collect within the sports card hobby, but there are two main areas that, for the most of us, the hobby falls into. You could either collect vintage cards or you could collect modern or ultra modern sports cards. And I'm sure you've seen on YouTube or social media where some people on one side throw arrows or put down people who collect the opposite way. You may have some ultra modern collectors not understand why someone would be interested in collecting vintage cards. They're players that you probably never saw play. Yeah, they may be great players, but the hobby and the growth of the hobby is all about new products, the current players in the game, and that's where the hobby's going. And they think that vintage collectors are stuck in the past. And then you have vintage collectors saying, I don't understand the ultra modern market, the buying, the flipping, the prospecting. I've heard some comments of, how can someone pay so much money for a player's rookie card, some cases when they haven't even played one game in the major leagues, when some of these all-time great Hall of Famers sell for a fraction of that amount, and they don't understand, or they put down all these ultra modern collectors and the way that they collect. And so Greg over at Midlife Sports Cards wants to know, for his question of the week, is there really tension within the hobby between vintage collectors and, let's say, ultra modern collectors? So to help answer that question, at least for me to answer Greg's question, I tried to look for an analogy. And the one I came up with is politics. Now, within politics, there's a spectrum. So within the middle of the spectrum in politics, you have the moderates, the ones that may have some strong feelings on particular issues, are willing to look at the other side and their point of view. They may be have strong beliefs on one side, but also strong beliefs on the other side, and basically try to get along and compromise with people of differing thoughts and beliefs. Then you have the leaning left, those that may have some stronger feelings on the left side, the more liberal side, can maybe see some viewpoints on the right, but tend to lean, the majority of their thoughts and beliefs lean toward the left. Then you have the moderate, or the lean to right, and they have stronger conservative values and thoughts. They can see some viewpoints on the left, but for most of their beliefs and thoughts, they tend to be more conservative. And then you get the extremes on both ends. You have the strong liberal and the strong conservative, the extremes. And those seem to be the people, and you see them probably a lot on TV, social media. Those two sides seem to be the ones that put down the other side, name calling, shooting arrows at each side. They have very, very strong beliefs on their side, and they can't understand and are willing to accept anything that the other side has to present in terms of an argument. And so let's take that analogy and bring it into the sports card hobby. So in the middle, I think the majority of people within the hobby fall within the middle, the moderates. They may have some modern cards in their collection. They may have some vintage cards in their collection. They may do some buying and selling and flipping, but still have a personal collection of cards, and some of them are modern and some of them are vintage. They enjoy vintage because of the great players and the history of the game, but they enjoy collecting cards of the players that they currently watch on TV or go see in person at games. Then you have the ones that lean left, and for this analogy, I'm going to call the left the ultra modern collectors. They may primarily collect modern cards, but they have some vintage cards in their collection. They may not have many. Maybe there's some personal collections. Maybe they see some vintage cards as investments, maybe longer term investments, but primarily focus on ultra modern cards, flipping cards, and that aspect of it. Then you have the leaning right, and we're going to call the right in this example vintage collectors, that the leaning right may have more of their collection focused on vintage cards, but may dabble a little bit, maybe not open boxes, but do collect maybe some of their current favorite players and pick up some of their cards, but primarily their collection is vintage focused. I think those three groups within the sports card hobby generally get along with each other. They can enjoy and appreciate both aspects of the hobby and say, hey, you like modern more, I like vintage more, that's fine. You do what you do, you enjoy the hobby your way, I'm going to enjoy it my way, and let's all get along. But it's the extremes again within the hobby that I think that if there is any tension out there, it's those collectors at the extremes. You have ones that they only focus on modern and flipping and prospecting, and they're willing to pay $1,200 for a brand new product with the hopes of, pulling that big hit. And they're willing to take some losses, but then every once in a while, maybe they get a big hit and can flip it and get their money back. They may have they may not have a collection for themselves, but are in the hobby to buy and sell, and that's how they enjoy the hobby. Then on the extreme right, you have those that are solely collecting vintage. They love the history of the game, the stories of the players. They get into the like I said, the history, some of the great players of the game, and even some obscure players, but have a special place within the history of the game. They may watch current sports, but they're not interested in paying all this money for these modern cards when they can take that money and really enjoy some nice vintage cards. And I think if there is any tension at all, it's those extreme ends in the hobby just not understanding, or I think it's just they don't understand the mindset of the other side. I'm not sure if I brought it up here because it's something I wanted to bring up, but I know that let's say for ultra modern collectors or flippers, investors, for a vintage collector to get all excited about picking up a card in a PSA 1 or a PSA 2 that has creases, rounded corners, maybe some paper loss, and they don't understand how that collector could be so excited about picking up a card in that condition when all they're focused on is centering, sharp corners, the chromes, and all the different parallels, autographs, patch cards. That's their scene. That's where they see the hobby going, and they just can't understand why someone would want to collect all these old cards. And so I think if there is any tension within the hobby, I think it's on the extremes. For me personally, I probably on the spectrum would lean right. I do collect some modern cards, of course, my Boggs collection, but I really enjoy collecting vintage cards. Now, do I see the benefit the enjoyment of collecting some of the all-time greats, learning about the history of the game? Absolutely. Do I scratch my head sometimes at some of the prices that some of these modern cards are going for, especially for players that may have had, a couple good early years of their career? There's no guarantee that they're going to instantly become, Hall of Famers. And all this money spent on these cards, are the values really going to hold up over time? So do I scratch my head and wonder why people would want to do that? Yeah, I sometimes do, but I also try to stay open-minded and say, hey, that's how they enjoy the hobby and collecting. And hey, if that's what they want to do, go ahead and do that. It's not going to affect me. So go and have fun, and I'll have my fun in my little neck of the woods within the hobby. So in general and in summary, I don't think overall there's any tension between vintage collectors and, say, ultra modern collectors, but there is some of it out there. It's clearly out there, and I'm not I'm not trying to put everyone in a certain box. So if you only collect ultra modern cards, I'm not implying that all of you dislike or can't understand vintage collectors. And on the other hand, if all you collect are vintage cards, I'm not saying that you hate, dislike, or don't fully understand ultra modern collectors. I think at the extremes, just like politics, there's a small number of people compared to the moderates and the leans on each side. I think that probably takes up 90% of the hobby. But you get some extremes on either end, maybe say 10%, 5 on each side, whatever. And those are the ones I think that maybe, shooting the arrows, putting down the other side, which you may pick up on YouTube or social media as being some sort of tension. So, Greg, excellent question again this week on whether there's tension between the two main areas within the hobby. Would love to know in the comments what you think about there being tension between the two sides. Where do you fall into the sort of spectrum of collecting? I would venture to say that most of the people that follow my channel will probably say they may be leaning right a little bit, meaning maybe they favor vintage cards a little bit more, but would love to know maybe if you're on the other side. And if you are on one of the extremes, are you one of those ones that just can't understand the other side? I'm not going to put you down or get into any argument with you, because again, I can sort of see both sides, but we'd love to know what you think in the comments. And with that, that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.